we go. What is the big news this week? The big news is the carousel, which finally, after many attempts and many years, received landmark status. And this was a big, obviously it was big news, but it was a big moment. Not only for Woodhaven, but for the surrounding communities. We obviously the carousel in Forest Park, right here in, the carousel is in Woodhaven, but it's really something for everybody, and we're really proud of it. So today I gave a call over to our good friend Abramson, who is with New York Carousel Entertainment. Wanted to kind of get his take on how they felt about the landmarking, and here's what he had to say.
Tell us how you guys feel about this.
We're very proud to be operating a historical landmark. We have confidence after meeting with public officials, with landmarking, with New York City Parks, that really it will be a partnership, and we will be able to do what we need to do to operate the carousel the way we know how to do, and in the best possible way. And so we're excited and proud to be associated with such a beautiful, majestic carousel that deserves the notoriety of a landmarking. So from here on out, we just look forward to doing what we do on a really beautiful carousel, and a carousel that's been noticed and deservedly so. So that's how we feel.
That's great. Now, how did you find out about it? Did they give you a call? I mean, were you? No,
we knew it was coming up, and I don't really remember how I heard it. I think someone called me, but I think I knew it was happening anyways, and it seemed like it was going to be a fait accompli at that point. And there's still a process actually ahead in terms of its official.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like it's a done deal, and I know that's how it's being reported, and we're just going to do what we have to do, and I don't think there are going to be any problems. I think it's just going to be good and bring more attention to the carousel.
That's great. Now, will there be any kind of a ceremony or something, some kind of official thing?
When it is truly final, and again, I'm not the person to explain the process of how that happens, I do believe there'll be some sort of event. And I'm not yet sure who's going to be organizing that event, whether it's Landmarks or just something between us, Landmarks, and New York City Parks. I really don't know yet, but we certainly will put the word out when and if we have a date for such a thing.
That's great. Well, listen, congratulations. We're very, very, very happy for you guys.
Oh, congratulations to Woodhaven and to the people of the neighborhood. It is, as we've always said in the process all along, it's the carousel belongs to Parks, but on behalf of the community. And we're just happy that it's going to be here for, a very, very long time, if not forever. And our job is just to be stewards of this, beautiful carousel.
That's great. All right, man. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
You too. Enjoy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye.
All right, so Abramson from New York Carousel Entertainment, and you heard what he said there, and what we're going to do now is we're going to bring on someone who's been covering the carousel saga, and it is indeed a saga when you look back at its history, starting around the turn of the century, and then operating without interruption until that night in 1966, in which it was burned to the ground, and then the acquisition of a carousel that was brought here to Forest Park, and this is someone who's been covering the story for a long time. and that is from the New York Daily News, Lisa Colangelo. Lisa, thank you for calling in. How are you?
Hey, can you hear me? I think
I
was listening. Yeah, I was listening into Ami, so that was interesting. Saga is a great word because as I was listening to him, I was just thinking about how people have been really pushing for this for so long, but it comes at a time where you probably have the most involved concessionaire in the last 20, 25 years. So it's kind of, and I know we discussed this, it's sort of interesting the way, the timing of all of this. And I think even though people have been reluctant to talk about it publicly that much, I think, there was some concern of what landmark would mean at this point. I mean, the push for landmarking, I think, the Block Association, certainly all the work that you've done, and the Councilwoman Crowley and Maria Thompson, I think that was always meant as a protective measure because there was this uncertainty of what's going to happen, down the road.
Sure, yeah.
But at the same time, you have a concessionaire that's really the most, since Marvin Silver first, did that big renovation in the late 80s, this is somebody who's reached out to the community. I'm not used to seeing, parks concessionaires reaching out this much, so, which is a positive thing for you folks. So I think that, people are wondering, what does this mean? What does this mean for the carousel now? But it is definitely, it should make people feel good. There's always been a lot of criticism that there aren't enough landmarks in Queens compared with Brooklyn and certainly Manhattan. So, and I think a lot of people have worked on this for a long time. I'm curious to see what it does mean ultimately. Are they not going to be able to do certain renovations? Does it mean that there's some kind of grant money down the line? I think that's all sort of up in the air, what this means other than it's a label.
There seems to be, there still seems to be a number of questions out there, and I was kind of surprised when he said it's not really official yet. Do you know what he meant by that? Is there still some more stages?
I'm sure that they vote, and then there's a process. What we've been hearing all along is once something makes it on the Landmarks Preservation Commission calendar, most times it's going to be voted. So maybe there's just some other paperwork process before it officially becomes a landmark. That I'm not exactly clear of. But what I'm really curious about, and I'm not sure if anybody will ever, tell me this so I can write it, but what changed in the last few years, and I think it's a combination of things. I think it is lobbying. I think it's lobbying from, many different groups because I've been asking for years, why would why isn't the carousel why is not eligible to be landmarked? And I'd heard all sorts of things, that the only thing you could landmark was the shed that it's in, which, doesn't make any sense, because there's really no historical value. The shed dates back to 1973. So I think it's one of those things where we had heard different things, and once they finally did the research, this is the other carousels that are landmarked in New York City are landmarked because they're part of a landmark district or a landmark structure or something. This is, I believe, the only freestanding carousel landmarked, right? And other amusements, the Cyclone, and what was the third one? I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I can't recall.
But it's a big moment, and people should feel good about it. We're just sort of interested in seeing what happens next.
Sure. Now you've been, we said we've been covering the saga for a while. What was your first? Do you recall your first story on the carousel going back?
I actually do, and it's a weird, funny story. So I lived until I was 6 years old. I lived in the Forest Park Crescent, right, which is now I think called Forest View. Park View Crescent. But it was the Forest Park Crescent when I was a kid, which is about, a couple of blocks away from the carousel. And I have this vague memory of a child remembering that it burned down. I just remember hearing that. And once I was out of college and working at the Queens Tribune, I was always loved Forest Park. I was always interested in Forest Park. And, I'd pass by the carousel, and I kind of always remembered being shuttered, and I came across something, and I think it was a Community Board 9 notice or newsletter, or it may have been a Maria Thompson newsletter. I think I actually gave you a copy of this. You might have it somewhere, from 1988, that said, hey, there's a new concessionaire. It's going to be renovated. So I wrote a story about that, and I just kept pushing, and Marvin Silver was doing this meticulous restoration, and I was actually able to go to the workshop, the Fabricon workshop that was in Glendale at the time, where they had stripped down the horses and were repainting them. And it was pretty amazing to watch, and they really did just an incredible, meticulous, I keep using that word because that's what they did. You know, these are very detailed hand-carved horses, and if you're just slapping years of paint on it, you're really missing some of the amazing detail. So that's what they did, and I think it really saved the carousel. So, yeah, the first story would have been in 88, when I just took a picture myself of the shuttered shed, and then in 89 or probably late 88, early 89, when I got to go to the Fabricon warehouse, and then it reopened in 89. So, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, and it's listen, it's had that like I said, a saga. It's been a drama, over the years. Certainly, going back to the prior carousel when there was a fire. I was a little young to remember the fire, and I have even though my mom tells me for sure I rode on the original carousel, I have no memory of it, but I do recall being up there with my dad after the fire. And seeing, basically that empty spot up there, and it was just, charred wood and stuff, and we were up there for a walk. I mean, I do recall that. I was probably about five or 6 years old, I guess, before they brought in the new carousel. I'm wondering if the people in Massachusetts where this carousel originally was housed, if they've had any reaction to this. It'd be interesting to see if they're even aware of it. I'm not sure what that town is like
people
now.
Have every time I write about the carousel, I get very interesting emails, and I think for people who moved, and we discussed this once, for people who moved out of the area, say, 30, 40 years ago, or maybe even longer, I think they don't realize there was a fire and it's a different carousel. And, not every article I write can have tons of background in it, unfortunately, because of space. But, I'll mention the carousel came in 93, and then somebody will email me or call me and say, hey, but I was on that carousel in, 1960 or something. And I'm like, well, it was a different carousel. So, but everybody has very strong attachment, very strong memories. But so many people who lived in that area, moved, probably either after the first one burned down, certainly before 1973 when the new one came in. But then there's a whole other generation of people who grew up with this one. Mm-hmm. So that spot and Forest Park in general and that spot, I mean, people have a lot of memories. People have a real attachment to it. And I think it's just been a matter of finding a way to tap into it. And that's why I think the Facebook page that you did worked, because it was reaching people beyond Woodhaven. It was reaching people who moved away, maybe if they were just in other parts of Queens, but that had strong memories of that carousel.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, people from all around. I mean, listen, we like to wrap our arms around the carousel as our own, but it does belong to everybody. And there are, we're surrounded by good neighborhoods with people that all have the same fond memories.
I know, and I always thought it was in Glendale. I always thought the Glendale border was through the park and not Myrtle Avenue. So I think for years I just assumed that was Glendale. Although knowing it's Community Board 9 and not 5, I guess I should have known it was Woodhaven. But, it's right by that line. But you certainly claimed it as your own. And I think that's done a lot to sort of raise attention, because that's what you need. I mean, that's always been the issue with that spot in Forest Park. It is, people have a lot of, people have a lot of memories. It's a matter of sort of, because it's this hidden away spot, even though it's right on Woodhaven Boulevard, which is such an open place, I think, it's really done a lot to to bring that out, to show how many people really care about that. So maybe that was part of it too. Maybe it was the pressure from Elizabeth Crowley. Maybe it was the pressure from, and then Maria's been chipping away at this for years. Maybe the time was just right. I don't know. I'm kind of curious as to why. Maybe the last experience with, the last concessionaire, which was just so negative and people were so worried and it took so long for them to find a good concessionaire. And I'm sure there was a lot of discussions that they didn't want to scare away a good concessionaire, because that's a part of it too. I know it's one that people don't really want to talk about, but you finally have somebody who's really taking good care and investing in that property. And again, I think that's the first time that's happened, certainly in more than 20 years. So you don't want to scare them away either. So I think this is, a saga is a good way to describe it.
Well, we're certainly glad it's been Landmark and be around for many years to come, if not forever, whatever that turns out.
Yeah, I think in the end, that's what's so important to people, because you don't know how long any concessionaire is going to stay in any New York City, owned amusement, right? So this way, you don't have to worry about years down the line somebody breaking up the carousel, being sold or being lost. So it does give it a protection, and I think it sort of allows people some pride, and maybe you can breathe a sigh of relief. So
that's great news. So switching.